All right, question of the day. What is your favorite board game story that you tell over and over to different people? Anywhere that you get the opportunity, you're like, oh, I got to tell you this crazy story. Well, we have a couple. Number one is when James flipped the table and left during Twilight Imperium and then had to come back in and just tell the person he yelled at to, hey, please move your car so I can leave. It was humiliatingly hilarious, and we read about it today. My second favorite one is the original Time Stories, the very first one, The Asylum, the ending, right? That moment where it's like, do you want to do this thing? And we're like, yeah, we should probably do that thing. That sounds like that's how you win this. And then you do it, and it's like, you lose. I was like, dang it. Should have known. Well, the reason I bring that up is because today we're talking about Time Stories Cavendish. Now, this is the blue series of Time Stories. A lot of time has passed. Heck, we were in our old house when we played the original Time Stories. This is the blue series. Now, what's different is these are individual boxes, almost like the escape room style, where you just buy the box, play the box, put the box back. But what's different about this one is, well, there's a lot. And again, I can't spoil a lot, but there will be some spoiler stuff at the end of this review because I do want to talk about it. But let me just say this one feels different. And I will talk about that in kind of the final thoughts of this before we hit the spoilers, what makes it feel different. But this is Time Stories Cavendish, the newest in the Blue Box series of Time Stories. Let me also give a disclaimer. If you quit Time Stories because you didn't like some of the experience, like Madame, that was an awful one in the white series, and then some of the blue ones have been really great. The Hadal Project was great, and then Midsummer's Nights was like, it's okay. If you've given up on it, trust me, I'm gonna reveal final thoughts right now. Definitely try Cavendish. Oh my gosh. Now let's get to the overview. We'll come back up, talk final thoughts. Hey, before we get to the overview, just want to let you know the mugs are back in stock on the merch store, and we will have them in person at Dice Tower East. But also, if you want to go ahead and order your Dice Tower Board Game Breakfast mug, as well as some amazing shirts and swag and hats, go check that out at dicetowerstore.com, and I will personally ship those to you. All right, so this is pretty much everything I can show you. These are not spoilers because literally after the prologue, you get your character cards. I'm going to even show you the back of them here because, again, this is the very first thing you get, so it's not a spoiler. This is nice. It's a game round card. And then you have the Destiny deck. So in Time Stories, the original, there was dice that you would roll, but this one you use a Destiny deck that works a lot more like Journeys in Middle-earth or things like that. You're going to do a test based on the card that you draw. So you also have these Azrak crystals. Everybody will get a certain amount based on their character right here. So Anton starts with 7, then 4, then 4, then 6. If you ever refill those, and there's ways to do that, you can never refill past that number. These are your skill checks here. So it tells you kind of what you do when you do a skill. So for instance, let's say you have a test that is a strength test with him. You would add 3 to the success. Now, some of these tests, you get a better benefit if you hit exactly on. So you don't want to just overpower it. Now, what you can also do is you can spend Azrak to bump it up, or you can also, if someone is standing by, they can help by spending an Azrak to give you a plus to that skill as well. What you're going to do is there's going to be a tableau of cards here with different locations. The back of the cards will show you things in that picture. So for instance, if you're in a library, you might see a chair. This picture might be books. This one might be, something on the shelf or something like that. And what's going to happen is during this first part, the time captain is going to pick a location based on the map. Now you also get this frame. This is the very first thing you get. So again, I'm not going to show you by spoiling it. But you have the outside of the mansion here, and as you're doing this, you're going to go ahead and find some things in the mansion. These are the locations you can currently go to. You start here, and then you can go to B, you can go to K, and it tells you that in the beginning card. You pick as the time captain which one you're going to go to. You'll pull that location out. Then you'll read the intro card for that location, and then everyone will choose one of the cards in the tableau to discover. They'll pick it up, they'll read it. It may have a test. It may say stop. It may say, don't say this out loud, or certain things like that. Then everyone's going to psychically tell each other what they discovered. So what that means is you discuss it, but it encourages you, it actually tells you can't just read it verbatim. You have to use your description abilities to describe it to the person. Now, that one's for free. When you pick a location to go to, you're going to put an Azrak on the map in this one, and it'll show you based on that. But if you were in a place, you say, okay, well, there's nothing really helpful on this card. Let me see that card that you just looked at. You could then spend an Azrak to the void over here. The stuff coming from the void will go back to you when you do a standard update. You could then pick up another card and read it and do it.
The first one's free. If you want to look at more, you have to pay. Then you can do the actions, which would be like explore, standby, or initiate a test. That's the stuff on the cards it'll tell you. Now, between locations, you say, okay, we're done with the library or whatever. We're going to go somewhere else. You can do what's called a standard update. Essentially, you're going to take one of the Azrak out of the void. Let's just say you had 4 in there. You're going to take one out of the void, kick it out of the game onto the end game card. That's going to kind of be your scoring at the end of the game. There are ways to remove these and ways to add more, depending on what you do. Then the time captain divides these up amongst people. Now, again, you can never go over your limit, but these are kind of your action abilities, so you kind of want to make sure everybody's got enough. If you run out, you get pulled from that location, and then you have to either do an emergency update or a standard update in between locations. So that's pretty much how you play the mechanics of the game, but obviously it's very story driven, and you're going to be discovering the mansion and all sorts of stuff there. So that is Time Stories Cavendish, and really kind of how to play the blue box system of Time Stories in the first place.
All right, so that is Cavendish. Now, when I hear Cavendish, naturally I think of the classic 1800s pipe tobacco, but that's not what this is. This is a mansion, Cavendish Mansion, the Cavendish family. And essentially, let me just also say, there's a print and play that you could have played before or after this one. We did not do that, so we played just Cavendish. We're jumping in straight into this story. Now let's talk art. First of all, the art in this one is tremendous and creepy. There were multiple times where I literally would flip over a card and be like, ooh, dang. That's cool to be able to get that like almost boo scare effect in a card, right? That's really well done. So the art in this one looks amazing. Whoever the artist is, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Really, really well done in this one. Just looks great. Art direction in this game. Well, it's very simple. There are 3 symbols that you have on your cards. You flip over a challenge, and if you have to do, a challenge based on that, well, you just test your skill number and you can boost it. Somebody else can help you if you want. Then there's the gameplay, and this is where I want to spend the meat of it. Now, again, I'm going to break this up into a spoiler-free and then a spoiler part of the review, because obviously I don't want to ruin it for you here, but I also don't want to just leave it and be like, well, I can't talk about it. I want it to be kind of two-pronged, so you can cut the video at the end if you want when I get to the spoilers, if you haven't played yet, but I'll give you all my number and final thoughts before that. So, gameplay in this one. What makes this one, to me, special? Well, in my mind, this is either my favorite Time Stories experience or my second favorite behind Asylum. And that's high praise, because Time Stories for me, if you watch my top 100, I believe it's in my top 20 or 30 at least of my favorite games. This one really brings it back to that original feel. There's a mystery you're trying to solve. This one feels a lot more like you're playing my other number 1, number 2 favorite game of all time, Mansions of Madness, while playing Time Stories. This one has that feel of, we got to figure this mystery out. And oh dang, do you think that's it? And the puzzles in this one are so well done. There's one that sticks out in my mind where we're doing the puzzle and Andy goes, oh, well, this is the answer. I'm like, how did you know that so fast? He said, well, you have this, and this, and this. And I was like, wow, you were really good at that puzzle then. But they're really well done. There's multiple puzzles. There's one really cool puzzle where one of the players has to do something. They have to come out of the game for a second and be the answerer of a puzzle. And the way you do it, if you know me and my background and being an illusionist and the history of that, and check out Hiding the Elephant by Jim Steinmeier if you want to really know more about this topic, is tremendous. This is such a cool mechanic that Andy was our person who knew the answer, and we had to ask questions and get the answer, and the way he has to do it is just so cool. That was a fun puzzle. It was a really, really interesting puzzle. And what I love about it, again, is you can't just break your way through it. Yeah, if you do fail, you'll eventually get the information, but you won't get a certain thing. But having the way you answer and being able to go, hey, I bet it's this, and oh yeah, here's why I think it's this, and then being right, there's nothing better than that in any kind of escape room or Time Stories game. The idea of, I know this is probably right. And there are little inferences that you find where you go, hey, I bet this is that. In fact, there's one puzzle that only has one correct answer, but there were 2 ways to get there, and one of them is the actual right way, but the other one is if you made an inference, which we did, but we also got the other answer. We made an inference that I bet that's what it's talking about because of this piece of information we found. it would have worked as well, which to me was pretty cool because, and I'll talk about that in the spoiler part. It's pretty cool that both of those inferences, one the definite way where you find the right information, you go, this is it finally, and then the other way, and then there's this other little hidden puzzle thing that's there, and it just, all that is so much fun, and the story is good, the story's rich, and then there's another moment where this one shines, and what makes this one the best of all the Time Stories one are those personal interaction cards. So instead of just being a nameless widget or a nameless person who can't really interact with the story because you just picked a random character card, this one handles it perfectly. One character has different interactions than everybody else with the people you talk to in the mansion. And what's crazy about that is one of those characters is really story linked. And there's a moment in the end of the story where you've been hearing this stuff the whole time. You don't know what to believe. You don't know what's true. And finally, that one character gets to do something. And it's so interesting. In fact, it tells, and this is not a spoiler, but it tells that one character, hey, leave the room. You can't listen to what your friends are doing. They can't see what you're doing. And it says, take these cards with you. And so you're looking at the cards and you're looking at your interactions and you decide, hey, do I want to do that? And I chose one path, but I was like, I wonder what happened, right? Because I had some time to kill. They were still in there. I wonder what would happen if I'd have picked the other option. And so I looked through it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. It's a really cool mechanic. And then when you beat it, if you're not playing with the experience, expansion where you kind of keep on with the story, well then you're done and you had a great experience. But if you play with the experience expansion, you kind of go, oh man, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we didn't do that, right? And then there's an Easter egg that's pretty key all the way back to Asylum. And to me, that's really great. There's an Easter egg that goes all the way back to the white box. If you didn't play it, it doesn't matter. It's not something you're going to miss. But having played the first one and being so enjoyed by us, when this Easter egg came, we were like, oh, that's that thing, right? So that's the end of the spoiler-free review. Time Stories Cavendish is a 9.5 out of 10 for me. This was an amazing experience, partially because I already love Time Stories, even though there were some that I dinged really hard. This brought it back full circle to me. This was as good as it gets when it comes to this type of game. So 9.5 out of 10. If you haven't played Time Stories Cavendish, go play Time Stories Cavendish. Get a friend group that you really know that you're going to have fun with and bang this game out one night. It's just so much fun. And one last thing. I do like the mechanics of the blue box better than the white box, even though I like the presentation of the white box better, where you had this module and you put them on the board. I miss the board. I miss the little tokens that represent it. However, I get this is easier to throw down on the table, set up, and play. But that being said, I do miss the presentation of the white box better. But this is my favorite. I think I'm declaring it now, my favorite Time Stories experience. And one of my favorite gaming experiences, Time Stories Cavendish. So, I'm going to give you a 5-second countdown here. I'm going to give you a 5-second countdown to the spoiler part of the review. So, if you don't want to hear spoilers, you want to go experience Cavendish for yourself, call this the end of the video. And then when you play Cavendish, come back and leave some veiled, vague comments below so that we can chat about the spoiler parts of it. So I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoilers incoming. Spoilers incoming. All right, let's talk the spoiler section. So first of all, the art in this is crazy. Every time you see Damien just creeping around the corner, you're like, oh man, and his name is Damien. Nothing ever good happens to anybody named Damien. And then come to find out, the whole, like, Nellie's in the Red Room twist at the end of it, where it's like, oh my gosh, the whole house is a bad guy, and it's just trying to suck the energy out of you. You get to that final boss thing, and you're like, dang, I'm glad we had all this stuff, right? All the objects collected. That was really cool. It was really well done. And how about the fact that I was playing Anton, or Anton, I think it's Anton. I was playing Anton, so I'm the one that had to leave the room, right? And it was like, do you want to go into the playroom? And I was like, I've been told by everybody in this mansion, don't go in the playroom. Everybody trustworthy and non-trustworthy, don't go in the playroom. I was like, I'm not going to go in the playroom. I did get the little doll, which helped. But then I was like, I wonder what would happen if I went into the playroom. And I kept flipping through the cards, and it's like, and you're dead. You can't play anymore. You can't interact and help. And I was like, that's really cool. The puzzle with the knocking on the thing, that's just such a well done thing. And it's a callback to the Fox sisters in the late 1800s, where they would tap on the table and convince people they were real mediums and stuff like that. So having that experience was really cool, where Andy had to knock on the table. And that book is obvious. Like, it's not, when I say obvious, I mean, it took us a minute to get to that book. But when we went, oh wait, it's got to be this one. Look, the light's shining on it, and this is that. So good. So well done. Story's really good. We missed the puzzle where it said you have found the potion of eternal life or whatever it was. Like, we saw several words in there and we were matching up the things. And we're like, wait a minute, this dude's 200 years old. He's clearly the bad guy. And then you start realizing who you can and can't trust. And then the ghost puzzle at the dinner, Andy was like, oh yeah, it's got to be this. There's got to be one exact truth teller, and this is who it is. I was like, you got to that really fast. So, man, this was fun. Let me know in the comments below if you played this, what you liked about it. If you spoilery, just make it vague or do the little spoiler thing. I think you can do that still. Great experience. So that is Time Stories Cavendish spoiler review there.